Peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome back to Space Invaders TV. It's the third day of January. It's January the 3rd, 2022. Welcome back. It's Monday. You got some little inclement weather here. You had some schools shutting down here in North Carolina. Some was postponed, like 2-hour delays or whatever. And it is a little, the snow's coming down, but it's not sticking. It's a little slushy. So, but as you guys see the title here, we're going to be talking about the NC GOP, grumpy old people, the grand old party. They have different names for the GOP. So they're supposed to be going to trial today. I checked the courts and seen where the courts open there in the capital of Raleigh, and the courts are open, but I still don't know if they're gonna, if that is postponed or not. Don't know anything on that yet, but I guess we'll find out before this evening what actually took place. So but they're going to court again for the second time in 5 years for the same thing, being accused of, having a hand in a cookie jar, and trying to move the goalposts, this map redistricting, gerrymandering, um, and some people, if you don't know what gerrymandering is pretty much when someone's trying to take control of something. I'm just using it in layman's terms. When you have a party, and mainly it's used in politics. So when you have a party that's trying to, like, you had the Republican Party, that they're the ones that are being accused. So they're trying to, manipulate the system and drawing up these lines where they can control more ground, where they can gain more votes. And sometimes you often see this kind of thing done when it's close to your local elections. When it's close to that time, they'll start trying to move the chips on the table, and setting themselves up, so they can be put back in office if they have more time to be, if they have another term. If they're available for another term, they mostly try to set themselves up, and better position themselves. And it's always like, and it has something to do with disenfranchisement. You know what I mean? I try to get that right. And also to control a class or a race, so it's always, so in North Carolina, the first time the same thing went on where, they tried to take ground and take up and try to take up area where were majority of black and Hispanic, and because they know that that's where a lot of the vote is, that's the heavy population. So they try to come in and take up that portion and set the lines up, for themselves, and then leave a very small portion, as trying to cut out the other party, pretty much. That's what it is. And then at the same time, what you start to have on that is, you'll have the people in those areas may seem, to be underserved, after a while, and not to mention if they were already like a impoverished neighborhood or area, then you have these folks coming in trying to move the goalposts for themselves, and then it makes it worse. It just makes it worse, because it's just and then it just goes to show, like, these people are only in there for their own gain, and I don't see how it really works out for anybody, and it just makes everything bad, everything. So even in that time in 2016, another thing that happened around that time, maybe a little before, a little after, you also had where the GOP, they were trying this thing with, okay, the voter ID. All right. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a fair person. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. I understand when you say, okay, we want to make sure that we having people that are legal citizens, that are that are legal citizens that are voting. We don't, you wanted to be on the up and up, right? When people are coming out and vote, that's what you expect, right? But it seems that these folks, and when they try to use that voter ID again to suppress, because they claim that they wanted to, and this is for North Carolina here, and they claim that they wanted to kind of combat uh, illegal immigrants. They wanted to make sure that you know everyone is who they are when they're coming out to vote. But it always bugs me out when the same folks that yell this, we want to keep an honest man honest, right? It bugs me out when those type of folks scream that, and I hear that sentiment, and I'm all for keeping an honest man, keeping a man honest. Okay, I ain't gonna say keeping an honest man honest, because if you're an honest man, you're honest. But keeping a man honest, I'm all for that. Okay, but when you're yelling that, but at the same time you're employing those who may be illegal, and you're employing them for your own gain, okay? And and in return you're paying them lower wages, and so you're using illegal immigrants, whatever service that they're offering or whatever. But then you turn around when it's voting season and say, "Oh yeah, we got to keep a man honest. We can't have that. So we need you guys. We need the people to show ID. They need to show that they're a resident in whatever county that they're voting in. Blah blah blah. So we care about those things now, right? So it's like you can't be playing this game like that. You can't play this game and move the goalposts every time that you feel, you know, because if we're gonna do it, let's do it. If we're gonna stand up and be against illegal immigrants, then be for it, and don't. That means don't accept any services or anything. Be against it altogether. Don't play. You're straddling the fence, okay? But you want to put a fence up when it's voting season, or you feel like, oh, I lost because of this. No, man. You know, and because and then it's this thing where you have people looking at, I don't want to point, I don't want to just use them, but it is what it is. Then you have what that does is then you have citizens looking at every Hispanic as if they are illegal when they're not. But most of the people that's yelling this, oh, we need to keep these illegal immigrants out. We can't. But the people yelling that most of the time are the ones who use the service, use the illegal immigrants, and they're fine with it. They don't say nothing about it because they're gaining from it. But when they're not gaining anything from it and they feel like then they want to use that. And I'm not saying that we don't have illegal immigrants, but what I'm saying is what that does is that's not cool, because when they're saying things like that a lot, right, and they're using that a lot, and then that makes it where you can make it where people, every Hispanic that they look at, they want to think that they're illegal. When a lot of Hispanics are actually working side by side with a lot of us out here in different industries, you know. So that's not a good look. So, but what we do know is the GOP is on trial. It's supposed to start today. If it don't start today, if the courts just delayed it because of the weather or whatever, then we know this week or sometime this month they will be going back. They will be in the court for it. But today is supposed January 3rd, 2022, beginning first full week. The trial was supposed to be today because this is the second time, like I said, that they have been accused of this. The GOP has been accused of this gerrymandering and map redistricting issues. And if you, especially in Guilford County, North Carolina, that was the main issue. And then you had the Guilford County school system. When the commissioners they drew up their map, then you had the Guilford County schools wasn't going to follow that map, but then they chose to, okay, we're going to follow it, which, from my understanding, Guilford County always mirrored the county's redistricting or what have you. And so, but and I did a piece on that, so I thought that was kind of weird, for at one point Guilford County schools backed out, they didn't want no part of it, and then all of a sudden they jumped in. When with the redistricting, a lot of that, you have a lot of impoverished areas. A lot of these schools are are impoverished, or deemed as low income areas. I ain't gonna say impoverished, deemed as low income areas. Okay, and so you figuring, okay, well, all of this redistricting and everything, all of this that you're trying to do, what is the plan to uplift these low income areas, though? And it never seems to be a plan. It always seems to be just these people just trying to move the goalposts for whatever reason, for themselves, their friends, and their special interests, or whatever. And the people seem to hurt at the end of all of that, So I hope that justice is served in this issue, because this is the second time, and there has to be some type of guidelines put in place, because this just continues to happen. And it's like, man, you guys are bad with this, the GOP, the Grand Old Party. Like, come on, man, you just tried this 5 years ago, okay? The judge just overturned it. The judge blew you guys out of the court, okay? Like, how do you come back again trying the same freaking thing that you tried just half a decade ago? You know what I mean? Like, how, like, you guys, like, how idiotic, like, how, like, in the brain, like, where are you guys at? You guys are desperate, like, and my thing is, I already knew when I seen, especially with Guilford County, it's like, it was clear. It's like, so now it's this voting season, it's election season, I should say, right? So now we want to do a map redistricting now, right? We want to move these chips, right? Because you know that the people are tired. And you have people that are stepping up that's saying, like, hey, look, I'm tired of this, and I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'm going to run for different seats, and whatever seats or whatever folks are deeming like they want to run for, they're going to run for them. And they like, I'm tired of you. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring so I can attempt to make a change in my city, state, county, whatever. All right. So I want to read to y'all. Real quick. What's going on to catch up to speed. All right. So, and if I didn't explain gerrymandering, I'm gonna explain it again. If I didn't explain it, if I did, I'm gonna explain it again. Gerrymandering is pretty much when you have a party or a group that's manipulating. They want to manipulate the maps, manipulate an area, and control a race or a group of people, a class of people, and it's basically like they try to move the goalposts. They try to take up a lot of land or space. They draw the maps to where they know where the most people are, where they figure where they can gain the most votes, and they want to come in and try to manipulate that, and then where they figure, okay, all of these folks over here, so we get in there, we can manipulate them, we can take over this area, and then we can gain the votes, and we can gain, whatever cabinet or office for whatever set amount of time we need, you know. And then in the meantime, with this gerrymandering, you rarely see things happen for some of these areas, and people at the end, it's just politics, and the people wind up being the ones who suffer. They be the ones who suffer at the end, because it's just some politics, and people are just trying to gain position, not really caring about the people, So most times when you hear about map redistricting, you'll hear if people are saying, is this gerrymandering or whatever. And the gerrymandering is just something old that's been going on for a long time, for a very long time. It's just, if the state or whatever, or city, wherever this is happening in the county, how they're going to play it, if they're going to play fair when it comes to the courts, how the court's going to see it, if that's something that was really happening or not, so we'll see. But I'm going to read and give you a little bit rundown real quick. Okay, this was from this was from out of Raleigh, WRAL, .com. Trial and gerrymandering lawsuit could decide political power in NC. All right. The fight over new North Carolina election maps and the political power that flows through them returns to court on Monday. Multiple lawsuits were combined for an expedited trial that on Monday will go before a 3-judge panel convening in Wake County Superior Court. After a brief power outage in the building, the hearing is expected to start at 10 a.m. All right. So, let's go. Closing arguments are scheduled for Thursday. The new congressional map is expected to give Republicans up to 3 more seats in the U.S. House, moving from the current 8-5 split to 10-4 or 11-3. After North Carolina adds a 14th seat this year, legislators' maps are expected to protect or expand existing Republican majorities in the state House and state Senate. Voting rights groups have contested the map, saying they're so biased towards Republicans that they violate the right to a free and fair election. This panel will decide whether the maps are constitutional or whether they represent an illegal gerrymander meant to make it harder for Democrats to get elected and lock in Republican power for as much as a decade. The case is expected to end up in front of the state Supreme Court on appeal. The High Court last month delayed North Carolina's primary election from March to May to make time for this process. The High Court ordered the 3-judge panel to issue an initial decision. These issues have been litigated here for years, but with the most recent census, the legislature drew new maps, starting the process again. Redistricting is supposed to be a once-a-decade exercise. Maps are drawn by the party in power, reworking lines to account for population shifts. Lawsuits forced multiple redraws over the last decade in North Carolina, as courts repeatedly found unconstitutional racist and political gerrymandering. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there. Y'all can. I mean, it's on multiple. This issue with North Carolina with this gerrymandering, they're going to court. The GOP is being accused of gerrymandering concerning the map redistricting. It's on multiple outlets, media outlets. You can Google North Carolina gerrymandering lawsuit, and you'll see it's different. You can read up on it more yourself. Yeah, so like they said, drawing the map lines, the redistricting is supposed to be once every decade. So like I just told you, North Carolina, they had this issue back in 2016. You know what I mean? So here we are again, 5 years. That was 5 years ago. You guys were in trouble for that 5 years ago, and this is the second time, man. So like I said, it's about moving the goalposts. I talked about this, and it's just mighty funny how they're seeming to make this a habit. They're continuing to do this, and just trying to keep. I don't know, but and at the same time, what other thing that people have to pay attention to is that they suspended, so people couldn't really anyone that was like planning to run for a said position or whatever it was on freeze because they got this court going on, and they have to sort this out. So now who's ever sitting in seats, they get to sit there. It seems like they might get to sit there a little longer due to this, because they might have been out if everything would run like it's supposed to. Like, let me read this real quick on standby to give you a little understanding. With maps pending, the state legislature is essential on standby, having come back into session last week with little on its agenda except waiting to see what the courts do. Lawmakers may be ordered to draw new maps. Spokespeople for leadership in both the House and Senate said neither chamber plans floor votes this week. What other issues the legislature may address is coming weeks beyond redistricting remains to be seen. The cases that were combined for this week's trial, North Carolina League of Conservation Voters versus Hall and Harper versus Hall, make similar arguments. The lead defendant is Rep. Dustin Hall, who chairs the North Carolina House Redistricting Committee, but other state leaders are also named. The NCLCV case was brought by lawyers with Jenner and Block, an international law firm with offices in Washington, D.C., and with in-state counsel from the firm of Robertson and Bradshaw and Henson. The Harper case was filed by the Patterson Harkavy firm in Chapel Hill and Washington-based lawyers from Arnold and Porter and Ellis Law Group. Elias handles redistricting and other election lawsuits across the country for Democrat groups, including the National Redistricting Action Fund, an offshoot of National Democratic Redistricting Committee, which is headed by Eric Holder, who was U.S. Attorney General for 6 years under President Barack Obama. Watchdog group Common Cause, which has sued the legislators' Republican majority before over maps, has also intervened in the cases and is represented by the Coalition for Social Justice. So, and let me give y'all another thing, why it's such a big thing too. And it almost seems like a conflict of interest a little bit because the GOP, they're the ones who put together, they draw the maps. Okay, the Republican Party, like they draw the maps, right? From my full understanding, right? So it's like a conflict of interest because that's why they're constantly being called out, because they're the ones who are doing it. It's not like, okay, they're taking turns drawing these maps. No, they're solely drawing the maps up. That's their thing. They're drawing the maps up. And that's why every time the finger is always pointed at the GOP, the Republican Party, because they are the ones who are drawing these maps up. So it's causing these problems, And of course, the Democratic Party is looking over the shoulder every time that they're doing this. They're looking over their shoulder, and so this time, just like the last, they're like, come on, we got you again. Come on, why do you guys keep doing this? And they're ready to take it to trial. So sometimes it may seem, if you're hearing this often and you heard this often, as you thinking like, why are they playing games? No, the Democrat Party is pretty much like over their shoulder. Every time they know that they're doing this, the Democrat Party is knowing like, okay, come on, man. Meaning for this state, for North Carolina, they're like, okay, come on now. We know when, okay, all of a sudden now you want to do it. You're supposed to do it only once every decade, right? So you're doing it now. You're doing it again. Like we did this, we went through this with you 5 years ago. You're gonna do this again. Okay, we know what this is. So now they got the microscope on them. So anytime they're gonna talk about their map redistricting, Democrat Party is gonna be standing really, really on them and right over their shoulder every time, and they're gonna be waiting because they know what it's about. And then, so it seems like they know they've been catching them this for the second time. And if they wouldn't catch them, and it's so funny because it's like the desperation of someone, you have to be really desperate. Like somebody's watching you and you still gonna like do it. It's almost like a kid, when a kid, they're not supposed to be trying to, they're trying to sneak a piece of candy or something like that. And they know they're not supposed to, and they know you're looking at them, and you're looking at them, and they're looking at you, and they're still like, and they're looking at you, and you're like, I see you, like don't touch it. But they're so desperate for that candy that they're willing to sacrifice. They're willing to sacrifice, whatever punishment that's going to be handed down to them. They'd rather sacrifice it, so, and it's like no matter where you may put that cookie jar, that candy, they're willing to go to great lengths to get it. So that's what this is almost. This is. I'm not gonna say almost. This is what this is like to me, right now. So everyone, just keep your eyes on it, and because all of these things, some people may say, well, how does it, these things play a real part in how your cities are set up, and then it trickles down to what happens with your cities. Like if you know what I talked about before when I talked about these schools being low income areas, and then the schools being that this said school is in a low income area, that school is also deemed a low performing school. And so you figure, okay, so if this school's been here for 50 years, you mean to tell me with all the technology and all the things now, why is that school still a low performing school? Why is this one area still a low income area? So then we now this gets broader, and it says, so now why is this a low income area still after all these years? So you telling me, okay, it may have been a thriving, may have been thriving 30 years ago, but for the last 20 plus years, it's been low. Why? Why hasn't it been rebuilt? Why hasn't so then you go to look at, then now you look at your city, then you look at your county, then now we look statewide and you say, okay, what's going on collectively? So you have to look at your local governments, and a lot this issue right here this is a big situation. So when you look around, even if you're not in a low income neighborhood and around the state, around whatever state you in, I'm talking in North Carolina right now, but whatever state you in, when you look around and you say to yourself like, okay, this area has been ran down for a long time. This school has been classified as a low performing school for the same amount of time. Why? Why aren't? And then especially now when you think about it, since the pandemic, all the funding that's been thrown at the states, for the education systems. You should start to see some changes made. You know, just to go on, and I'm gonna close out. Okay, just like right now, you're hearing many schools are talking about they were gonna do remote learning because of the cases were rising again. What the Omicron, the cases are spiking up around the country, right? So you say, okay, well, you got funding for your education, right? You got COVID relief funds, right, for the education, right? So why haven't you put your maintenance crews to work to make sure that they are cleaning down these schools? Once again, these people, these education, these border eds around the country, once again, these same folks that may be complaining about, they may have they're sitting their kids home or arguing about the fact of the kids being able to stay home and do remote learning, because of these same people went home during the vacation, during the holiday, and went home and sat on their hands. The cases were rising before the holiday, before the Christmas holiday, I should say, right? Right after Thanksgiving, they start talking about the spike again, right? So in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was rising again. They got funds. You got funding. Pay for what you need. What happened to spraying the schools down? What happened to all of this? Sanitizing and what happened to all that? Wiping down everything. Why wasn't that done? That's all I'm saying. Why are we doing the same thing? Why are we going through the same motion again that you went through at the start of the pandemic in March, April of 2020? Why now that all the funds that have been handing out to the states around the country, and then they pass out the funds, the states distribute the funding throughout their state, right? Why are we still having these conversations? Why is we still talking about, why are we still talking about that when there's money out there? Pay for the things, pay to have your school sanitize, wipe down, clean, whatever the freak you want to call it. Pay. You have the money. The counties have the money. Okay? The counties were granted the money. A lot of you may have seen half of it, 75% of it. Some of you may have got 80% of it. Some of you may have 100% of those funds. Use it. So all I'm saying is keep an eye on this situation right now. If you're in the state of North Carolina, keep an eye on this whole gerrymandering, redistricting trial that's going on with the GOP. Keep your eyes open to that, because I'm telling you this whole thing is a trickle down effect, and it starts. That right there is the play. Is the setup of how a lot of things, and you see areas that been ran down that they never get the attention that they need, because of things like this, plays like this are going on, and it's a whole political game. Okay, so pay attention to this stuff, because people aren't doing this for nothing. They doing this for a reason. Okay, so yeah, and it trickles down to your neighborhoods, and then it goes into and whatever else is in your neighborhoods, the businesses, the schools, everything, the funding. So then they start playing with the funding. I mean, it's a whole game, and it's not really hard to it's not hard at all to understand. It's not hard at all to understand when most people for a long time understood that. A lot of people say we know it's politics, but when you really get down into it, you see how it's played in politics, and this is one of the ways right here. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. I'm your guy, Rashawn. This is Space Invaders TV. Peace and blessings to all y'all. I thank y'all Continue to stay locked in with me. Continue to share the page. And if you're new, if you just stumbled across, the channel here, make sure to subscribe. We talk local, national, world issues and topics. We don't touch on entertainment news here. We deal with everyday life things that you deal with, things that are happening, in your city, state, or whatever. We talk about it. Those conversations, those type serious, concerning conversations you have as an adult with your friends, family, and associates, or whatever. That's what I bring to you here. I'm not here to bash anybody. I just bring straight facts to you. And like I said, all the literature, what I just read off to you, what I read off to you, giving a breakdown on this trial for the GOP, the North Carolina GOP. This was WARL.com out of Raleigh. And you can just Google, and there's a lot of media outlets that are talking about it, from your CNNs, Fox, NBC. So this thing is national. So and if you're a resident of North Carolina and you care about your state, they're talking about your state. So you want to lock in and pay attention to what's going on, because like I said, this isn't the first time. This is the second time in 5 years that the GOP has been accused of this gerrymandering concerning the mapping, the redistricting of the maps. You know what I mean? So that's my time, folks. Once again, it's January 3rd, third day of the new year, 2022. Peace be with all of you. Until next time, I'm your guy, Rashad, and Space Invaders TV.